everyone to the very, very first episode of Redefined Radio. I'm super excited to be here. This is a project that has been at least a year in the making. And I am not used to podcasting or new to podcasting, excuse me, but this has been a labor of love. So I'm really, really excited for this to be the first episode of Redefined Radio. So for those who don't know me, may be unfamiliar, my name is Danielle. You can call me Danny. That is what most of my friends and family call me, Danielle Lyn, and I am a recovering millennial attorney. Yes, recovering. I will explain what I mean by recovering in a bit, but I emphasize that I am a recovering millennial attorney because I think where I am in life right now is really important to what I'm trying to do with this podcast and what I hope this podcast will be able to give all of you. I think as a millennial, I sit in one of the last generations to remember what the internet, what life without internet was like, and then lived through a bunch of stuff, including the expansion of the internet, access to all of our smart devices. My first cell phone was a flip phone. In my generation, I think, kind of introduced this instant access, instant gratification type of internet access, social media into the world. And here we are, most of us, many of us in our 30s. The oldest millennials are in their 40s now. The youngest are approaching 30, kind of at an intersection in our lives of what are we really doing? And is what we're doing aligned with what our passions are and what we really, really want to be doing for the rest of our lives. So that's why I think it's really important for me to frame myself as a recovering millennial attorney, because I think being a millennial frames so much of what my life looks like right now. Outside of that, I am a mother. I have one child, a 7 going on 27-year-old little boy. And I am a girlfriend. I am a mentor. I am a lover of all things food. I love to explore, try new foods. I live in Atlanta currently, but I'm a Florida native, born and raised, and my family is from the beautiful island of Jamaica. Big up to Miati, them, yes. And I was raised there for quite some time, but born and raised primarily in the state of Florida, ventured into Georgia and moved to Atlanta about 4 years ago, and really started the journey that has been the last 4 years of my 30s. So that is me. What inspired me to really to start this podcast is because as a millennial attorney, a recovering millennial attorney, I often felt alone in some of the feelings that I have now in my 30s. Right around 2019, prior to the pandemic starting, I started to feel this need for more. I really started thinking that there had to be more to life than what I was going through. You know, I graduated from law school at 26. I had my son shortly after that. And I felt like I had basically lived my life in the way that everyone told me to. I went and I got my education and I got a quote unquote good job, right, as an attorney. But here I was at 29 and I did not feel any of the fulfillment that I thought that I would have by doing all of these things. And I often tell people that that last year of my 20s was hell on wheels. I went through a lot of transitions, a lot of rough patches mentally and emotionally because I just I could not accept that this was all that life had for me. Then the pandemic started and it really shifted everything. I lost my job. My son was visiting his father in Georgia at the time when the shutdown happened. So I was away from him for the first time since he was born for an extended period of time, about almost 7 months. And I really just had to navigate this whole new world, uncharted territory. And not only am I navigating what I am going through personally, but nobody really knew what was going on in the world. Nobody knew anything about COVID or if we would even survive it. So I was in a very unique situation at that time. And because of that, I really started this life transition, trying to figure out what makes me happy. It took me a couple of years, but I think I started to realize that the practice of law, while it gives you a lot of access and while it does give a certain sense of fulfillment, um, where I was in life, I started to realize that I was not in love with the practice of law. And it took me so long to come to grips with that because I had a certain sense of guilt that I had spent so much time and so much money pursuing a field that I had to then admit to myself, I don't really want to do, and that I don't want to do this anymore. And what would my family say? Who would be able to understand, how burnt out I was and that I really wanted to pursue purpose and passion. Um, and I still struggle sometimes with the idea of transforming a career that I had worked so hard to achieve. I don't like to say stopping because I think being a lawyer and all of the knowledge and the access that you get from the level of education that you get as a Juris Doctor, I don't think it's limited to just the sole practice of law. When I say practice of law, I mean like taking cases, trying cases, or being considered a quote unquote esquire, if you've passed the bar and you're licensed to practice. And I think that that's part of the problem is that in this generation, we are so set on what we do that often we lose who we are in the process. I was going on this personal journey of trying to figure out why I was feeling this way and what am I going to do now, right? And feeling alone. And the more and more I talk to people, especially people who are in my age group, especially millennials and even some early Gen Z, I started to realize I was not alone. There's so many of us who feel this exact same way. Some of us are courageous enough to take certain leaps of faith and to really pursue things that are more aligned with our passions. There are some of us who kind of test the waters and see and hope that maybe one day when the bills are paid enough and we've saved enough and we've paid down enough debt that we can take that leap of faith. But then there are also, unfortunately, many of us who will never take that leap of faith. And we will always wonder, what if I had? What would life look like and what would life be like? And what I wanted to do was increase the amount of people who took that leap. And even if it's just to increase the amount of people who entertain the thought of taking that leap, I think it's really important for us to hear those stories and those experiences because there's so much value in knowing that you are not alone. So redefining something is giving it new meaning, seeing it in a new way, experiencing it in a new way. And so Redefined Radio is all about those people who are experiencing life in a new way. Ways that maybe are not the most popular, not the most trendy, maybe even ways that we can't really fathom that life would look like, but they're daring to redefine what the meaning of success is. And so I really want to create a sacred and safe space for people to do that, to be transparent, because I think we need more transparency and more honesty and more authenticity. And that is really the mission of Redefined Radio. And hopefully you guys will get, bits and pieces of knowledge and gems and inspiration from the things that are shared here. So I already kind of shared with you guys my own personal story of pivoting. I'm still currently pivoting, and to be honest, I don't really know. I don't know what life holds for me. Traditionally, I have always been someone who does not like uncertainty. I like to know what the end result of anything is going to be. I like to know what I'm getting myself into because I feel like if I know the end result, I know that my efforts will be fruitful. But oftentimes in life, You have a vision, but you can't see the path to get there. And I think that that's where I'm at right now. It's a hard lesson I've had to learn in my 30s that I have little to no control over most things in life. And sometimes you just have to go with the flow. And other times, when you feel the pull of purpose, you cannot wait for everything in your life to align perfectly, because it's not. There's never going to be a perfect moment to chase purpose. But purpose has to be chased nonetheless. But that's kind of where I'm at. I wouldn't necessarily say I'm floating. I think that I have a vision for what I want my life to look like. I am just discovering the different paths of how to get to that ultimate end result. It hasn't been easy. I mean, I started off the episode by saying that this show, this podcast, in and of itself, has been over a year in the making. And I have continuously talked myself out of doing it. I've continuously tried to figure out every way that this could not work, or, who wants to hear what I have to say? What value can I bring to anyone's life as I personally try to navigate my own journey and my own pivot? And so it's been a lot of imposter syndrome, a lot of perfectionist tendencies. Then the fear of failure has been crippling sometimes for me when I think about, what if I fall flat on my face? And in today's age, with social media being so prevalent, when you fall publicly. You don't fall, kind of like in the corner, and you can dust yourself off and pretend that nothing happened. When you put yourself out there like this, it's extremely public, and that is frightening. The idea that it's already hard enough to fear failure personally on your own, but then to have to fail so publicly possibly is rough. And so these are all things that I have struggled with and I'm still working to overcome. But like I said before, there's never a perfect time to do anything. The perfect time to do something is in that moment. And so I'm just proud to even be doing this first episode, to be honest, because it's been a minute, y'all. It's been a minute. So with all of that being said, some of the things that we're going to talk about on Redefined Radio is overcoming the fear of failure, is embracing change and the uncertainty of change. Because although we may like variety, we do not like change. We are creatures of habit. We like certainty. We like knowing that tomorrow, when I wake up, I'm going to flick that switch and the lights are going to turn on. We like knowing that when we go downstairs and we open that fridge, there's going to be food there. We don't like uncertainty, but nothing good ever comes from comfort zones. So anything that we are pursuing that is really purposeful and really worth having will come with a certain level of change and a certain level of uncomfortability. So we're going to tackle those issues as well. We're going to tackle authenticity and staying true to ourselves as we pivot into new experiences, new lifestyles, making sure that as we reach certain levels of success, that we are not losing our identity in who we are becoming or who we're labeled as or the hats that we wear, that we still stay true to the core of who we are. These are all things that we're going to talk about and flesh out together. And with that being said, you can find Redefined Radio anywhere that you can find podcasts. That's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, any podcast platform. Follow us on YouTube, like, comment, subscribe. You can find us on TikTok at Danielle Lyn _redefined. You can find me on Instagram at Danielle Lyn _redefined. Y'all, like I said, this is the first episode, and I'm just really, really proud to be putting this out into the world. So make sure that you're following us for more information. And yeah, I will see you guys in the next episode.